BBC Sounds. Music, radio, podcasts.
Hello, I'm Phil Goodlad and this is the Scottish Football Podcast, bringing you all the news, the views and the analysis you need on Tuesday the 29th of October. Here's what's coming up for you today.
Thomas with a chance! It's a terrible error from Durandi at the back. Didn't get the header away. It falls to Martha Thomas. And from inside the 6-yard box, she lashes it high into the top of the net.
We'll assess Scotland's chances as they welcome Hungary for their Euro 2025 playoff second leg, with the boss, Pedro Martinez Losa, in confident mood.
We know that obviously there's no way that we're going to lose the game at home in Scotland.
You say there's no way at all that you're going to lose the game at home?
Yeah, there's no way that Scotland's going to lose in Scotland playing with these players.
And we are going transatlantic.
Armstrong onto Ryan Gauld, who could finish. He has.
We'll hear from Canada, where Ryan Gauld and Stuart Armstrong try to help the Vancouver Whitecaps get through the MLS playoffs.
The Scottish Football Podcast from BBC Sports Scotland.
There is plenty to talk about, including confidence in football and whether it's wise to actually be as confident in public as Pedro Martinez Losa has going into the second leg tonight against Hungary. Delighted to say that Joelle Murray, former Hibs and Scotland defender, is with us. Joelle, morning to you.
Good morning, Phil.
Alexandre Gangue-Ruzic is the digital content creator at One Soccer and host of the Northern Football and Third Sub podcast. Alexandre, I hope I've given you all the titles that you possess.
Oh, you bang on, mate. It was perfect.
Listen, I'm going to be fascinated to hear across the pond what you think of confidence and calling out results before they actually happen, because I imagine that you guys, transatlantically at least, are slightly more confident in public when it comes to sport than maybe we are, Joelle, when it comes to, I mean, I don't know whether it's the fact that we have bitter experience of being confident and things not going right, but I was struck by Pedro Martinez Losa last week, basically saying that the tie is done after just the first leg.
Yeah, it was quite the comment, wasn't it? I was doing the commentary for the game, so after the match, and when I got home, I saw kind of all the post-match stuff and couldn't quite believe that comment and his interview directly after the full-time whistle, Phil. So, yeah, I think confidence is a good attribute to have, but that type of confidence, for me, probably should be kept internally within the squad. He said it was a live-in comment in the moment. He didn't mean to disrespect the opposition if it came across that way, but yeah, it certainly raised a few eyebrows indeed.
Yeah. Alexandre, give us your view quickly, please, on confidence in sport. It's funny because the Scottish view is, we shouldn't be confident, we should just keep it in the dressing room. Are you different? Do you believe that managers and players should come out and say, you know what, we will win the next game because we're better than the team that we're playing?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you mentioned off the top kind of, maybe on this side of the Atlantic that you can see a lot of confidence from sporting people when it comes to this sort of thing. But, I think that's also a pretty, strong American side of things. I think for us here up in Canada, we're very much the same, where it's ultimately it's a big thing to want to respect the opponent, to not want to give them any free fuel, any free fire. That's something where it's, again, like Joelle said, internally, you can 100% believe it. You want that sort of confidence within a squad, within a group, and to preach it. But externally, you never want to really give anyone added motivation that isn't already there. So I do think putting, that sort of comment on record, it only can hurt yourself, because ultimately if you back it up, good. But, if it comes back to backfire, you're going to see it everywhere. Wait, remember when you said it was done and dusted, it was over. So I'd say something where, I think you use that sort of confidence when you yourself are up against the wall. When you're in a position of confidence, hey, the best way to keep that confidence is just to keep going and doing your thing.
Confidence in sport. We'll speak more in just a moment. We're going to speak a couple of high-profile players as well in today's podcast, Caroline Weir and Ryan Gauld. I want you both to just have a think about a description of both of those players in one word, and we'll come to you in just a moment. First, though, let's whiz through the latest Scottish football headlines. We've been speaking about it, haven't we? Head coach Pedro Martinez-Losa, and those comments that the result will dictate whether he chose the right words or not. He suggested there's no way his Scotland side will lose their Euro 2025 playoff at home to Hungary tonight. The Hibs manager David Gray remains frustrated by Sunday's draw with Hearts, but says the point gained against their capital rivals is not a disaster. Celtic boss Brendan Rodgers faces a wait to find out how long striker Adam Ida is out with an ankle injury, but captain Callum McGregor could return for tomorrow's match with Dundee. Lewis Ferguson is back in the Bologna squad for their visit to Cagliari in Serie A tonight. The 25-year-old Scotland midfielder has been out of action since suffering an ACL injury back in April. Joelle, I'll get to all things Scotland in just a moment. Firstly, your thoughts on a couple of the stories in the headlines there. First up, David Gray. A point, he says, at home to Hearts at the weekend wasn't a disaster for the Easter Road side. You think that gives them the platform to build on, not just for Ross County tomorrow night, but for the run up certainly towards Christmas?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with Dave. A disaster, in my opinion, would have been ultimately a defeat. We didn't get that. The point, I think, for me, before the game, given the form, probably would have taken. However, given the way the game played out, I think a lot of us Hibs fans left Easter Road a bit frustrated, but certainly not a disaster. Gives a good platform for the upcoming games that are coming thick and fast, and players returning to the squad that showed that they can still perform and still have the ability to be there. So, yeah, I think some positives to take from that game on Sunday.
It struck me that the derby, as ever, is one that you can't lose. But almost more so for Hibs this time, a win would have been brilliant, but just not losing means that narrative has stopped and also hasn't been able to continue with the dreaded thing for any Hibs fans, which is, and we lost the Hearts as well. Yeah,
absolutely. I think the derby's always the fixture you look at when the fixture lists come out, and regardless of what's been and gone up until that point, it's a typical saying in football, cliche as it is, form goes out the window in these types of games. So for us, we obviously wanted to win the game to change the narrative. We didn't get that, but like you said, Phil, it kind of pauses that narrative and doesn't give that narrative any more momentum at this current time. And it gives the boys an opportunity, a quick opportunity to go and rectify that.
Let's get into tonight's game. The national side up against Hungary. They're 1-0 up in this women's playoff for next year's Euros. Joelle, I know we spoke about it at the top of the programme, but be honest, was there part of you that actually quite enjoyed the confidence displayed by Martinez-Losa when he just came out and said, you know what, there's no way we're going to lose this second leg?
Yeah, as I say, it raised a few eyebrows. He obviously meant it. You could see it was a comment that he didn't even give a second thought. It came out as quick as the question was asked and finished. So I think, look, it's important to have confidence. He appreciates the quality within his group. And if we just look at that central midfield that started on Friday night, you've got Sam Kerr, Bayern Munich, Caroline Weir, Real Madrid, and you've got Erin Cuthbert at Chelsea. So the quality in that position of the pitch alone speaks volumes, and he certainly appreciates that and appreciates the fact that we have top-class players and top-class players that can get past, with no respect, to teams like Hungary.
I mean, I would almost suggest that Pedro Martinez-Losa not coming from Scotland, that this is almost, it could have been lost in translation, because he's obviously a very confident Spanish manager. He's obviously very confident in making public messages for his players to then follow. But yet he's a Spanish manager that's been in Scottish football now for so long that he will know that type of comment is maybe different to what we normally hear week in, week out in Scottish football.
Yeah, absolutely. Like you said, he's well kind of known in the media now. He knows how our media works. He knows that comment could have been taken out of context and taken a completely different way. However, he did kind of try and rectify the situation by coming out and saying he was referring more about the motivation of the group and the confidence they have inside, obviously while respecting the opposition. So I think he's kind of pulled that one back there, reversed the narrative, but certainly raised a few eyebrows, as I said, Phil.
And just finally, and Alexandre, I'm going to bring you in just a moment, I promise. I feel like this is just a one-way conversation between Joelle and Murray, and between Joelle and myself. Joelle, we could go on and on and on about Scotland tonight. But as far as a player is concerned, when you hear a manager say something pre-match, do you talk about it in the dressing room? When you get onto the pitch, is it still fresh in your mind? Does it give you a boost? Does it put a bit of pressure on you? Take me into the mindset of a player who's heard confident statements like that.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it that after that match on Friday night, the players amongst themselves will have been talking about it, whether they agree with the comment or not. There will certainly have been chat. However, you see in the press recently, I think Martha, Caroline, they won't comment on that. They'll say it's a comment that's went over their head. But certainly there will be chat. However, come tonight at kickoff, as soon as the players take to that pitch, there'll be absolutely no thought other than getting through this 90 minutes and making sure we're in the next round of these playoffs.
Alexandre Gangue-Ruzic, from a Canadian point of view, if I told you that a national team tonight who are 1-0 up and have won 6 of their last 7 games were taking on the opponents that they just beat 4 days ago, would you say, oh yeah, they'll win, no problem?
Yeah, I mean, taking that fortunate position from leg one, I mean, makes a huge difference. You cannot deny that. So I think it's something for Scotland. I think if they can, you take that momentum in international football, especially with how fragmented it is from camp to camp, you take any bursts of momentum that you can and, see if they can back up the manager's confidence tonight.
If Ryan Gauld was to have come out last weekend and said something about the Whitecaps that they obviously were going to win the next game because they have the best players, and the last time they played the team that they're about to play, they beat them 1-0. Would there be eyebrows raised in the Canadian media as much as we've raised our eyebrows here?
Depends on the context. Certainly if you said it ahead of this current situation, they're playing LAFC in the playoffs. LAFC, they made the final last year. They won the final the year before. They're one of the teams to beat. Certainly you'd probably be hearing, okay, that's it's confidence. You're kind of wondering where it comes from. So I think it's all circumstantial. In this case, it's a big Euro playoff for Scotland. It's one where, it's going to be massive to reach that Euro tournament, especially when you look at some of the quality of players in that Scotland squad and potentially thinking you can be a dark horse team, but also you want to get to the tournament in the first place. So I guess it all depends on the context and the opponent you're up against too is a big one.
Joelle, Scotland will win tonight, right? I mean, the manager said so they will win.
Yeah, absolutely. I have massive confidence in the girls. I said on Friday night, they got the win whilst probably not performing to the levels that we know they can, but that shows signs of a really good team. So I think under the lights at Easter Road, the girls will get the job done.
It's one you'll be able to watch on BBC Scotland channel tonight, 7:35 kickoff. Also, you can listen to it on Radio Scotland. Right, let's leave these shores for a bit of North American razzmatazz. We're headed to Canada, to be more precise. Rheingold's Vancouver Whitecaps, currently in the middle of an MLS playoff, as Alexandre Gangue-Ruzic has just told us. They take on LAFC. The Scotland playmaker had a hat-trick in the last round. He scored again yesterday, his side losing 2-1, though, in the first leg of the tie. And of course, he's been recently joined, Rheingold, by his Scottish international teammate at British Columbia, Stuart Armstrong. Alexandre is here to fill us on how the two former Dundee United men are getting on. Is there still a sense, Alexandre, when you sign a couple of players from a historic, traditional footballing country like Scotland, that it's still it garners the headlines that maybe a Canadian or an American player that's signed by a club maybe doesn't?
Yeah, it's you can see the extra attention that such a move has brought. It has been interesting to see that heightened attention on a Ryan Gauld. I mean, especially in his case, was so unique because he spent so much of his career outside of the Scottish limelight, which we don't always see, especially the paths he's taken, right, to go to Portugal, now North America. You kind of feel that extra attention, especially as he's producing. Then there's the questions of should he be fitting in the national team setup? And, I know here in Vancouver, we're ecstatic to see him get this deserved reward. Because, I mean, we get to watch him week in, week out, how fantastic he is. And the same
would you like him to be called more readily into the Scotland squad? Because that would then mean that effectively he's travelling a lot and playing more games, which might have an adverse effect on you.
Ultimately, yes. I think here in Vancouver, we recognize the the importance of the global pyramid, I guess, so to speak, and the internationals football is a huge part of it. I think it's something where ultimately you don't really want to get in the way of guys doing that, because if his heart, he wants to represent Scotland, it's something a dream he's had for a long time. It's great because ultimately it helps his form. It helps him. You saw it right after he got that first call. He was in excellent form. He came back and hit form. I think if anything, it's a shame that in MLS, because here sometimes teams are forced to play through windows. There aren't the same rules in Scotland where games will get postponed if there is more than certain internationals called up. We don't have those restrictions here sometimes, which can be a bit frustrating because it hurts teams like the Whitecaps. The Whitecaps have 6 internationals. They got 2 on the Canadian team. We got Gauld now in Scotland, a couple in South America. It hurts them, but ultimately it's also a good thing because it raises the profile of the club. It raises the profile of these players. It helps the confidence. You take that ultimately, especially for Vancouver. It's a bit of a smaller market sometimes in the world, even though it's produced players like Alphonso Davies and the other, that it's good to have that extra attention, those extra eyeballs on the team.
Ryan Gauld now captain of the Whitecaps. Stuart Armstrong as well, now a teammate of Ryan Gauld's. How's he settled in?
It took a while. It's unique for Armstrong because he signs in September, and here that's the run, and it's it's booking playoff qualification. One of his first games was playing in a cup final because the Whitecaps had reached the final of the Canadian Championship. Here, it's a big competition for the Whitecaps. It's a chance to book their win a trophy and book their spot into continental competition, and it was clear he wasn't up to speed. And that's not his fault. He signs here. He's in preseason mode. He'd been training with I know he'd been training with Brentford. I think he'd mentioned just trying to keep up to speed. And he's dropped right into guys who've been playing since February together for months. And it took a while. He was struggling. He didn't look fit. He had some injuries. But I will say he's really come along lately. His last 2 games have been fantastic. You're starting to see the quality that you were expecting when it was signed, the pedigree that he has. And I think that's exciting because there's no doubt he fits perfectly into this team when healthy, when fit. And it took a while for those things to come together. And
the playoffs, Alexander, they're the best of 3. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a bit of a weird format here that even I think sometimes over here we're getting used to. But in the first round in MLS, they got 8 teams in each conference, so 16 teams playing a best of 3. The 3 games are independent of each other. You could win the first game 5-0. You lose the next one 1-0. It's going to game 3. There's no aggregate score. So yes, it's a bit of a different form.
And what happens if a team wins the first 2? You don't play the third because it's a dead rubber, do you?
Yeah, basically it's the first team to win 2. The third game is only needed to decide a tiebreaker. And in the case of the Whitecaps, they want that third game because of course they're trailing after the first game, not first leg.
Yeah, and they're trailing against Los Angeles. Olivier Giroud, Hugo Lloris. They strike me as a team just by those 2 names alone that this won't be easy for Ryan Gauld and Stuart Armstrong and the Whitecaps to get back into this playoff.
It's going to be tough because this LAFC team it's one of the best in MLS. In MLS now we see it. There's top players on a lot of teams. I mean, everyone knows Messi in Miami, but you look at LAFC with Giroud, Lloris. It's funny, those 2 haven't really been that important to the team because they got Denny Bouanga, who scored 20 goals this year. They got Mateusz Bogus, who's a full-blown Polish international. You've got some other important pieces across that team that have played for some big clubs. They're well constructed. it's a really tough LAFC team. They're good scoring, one of the best scoring teams. They're one of the best defensive teams. They're well coached. They're really, as far as MLS can go, where sometimes teams can be flawed because we have a lot of rules here in terms of salary construction. They've done a pretty good job of limiting some of the weaknesses some of these teams around MLS may have.
Joelle Murray, we would love a best of 3 playoff, wouldn't we? I mean, we can't get enough of these legs.
Yeah, we would absolutely love it. When I was listening to Alexandre there describing the kind of format, it was kind of mind-blowing, but yeah, we would absolutely love that here.
How confident would Pedro Martinez-Losa be going into a third leg?
Massively confident, I think.
Yeah. Listen, we'll leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Joelle Murray, of course, Hibs and Scotland legend, and Alexandre Gangue-Ruzic, a podcaster from Canada, keeping us up to date on all things Ryan Gauld and Stuart Armstrong as the MLS reaches the playoffs. Remember, big night ahead of us at Easter Road, Scotland against Hungary, the second leg of their crucial Women's Euros 25 playoff. It's live in the BBC Scotland channel, on air from 7:15, kick-off just after 7:30. It's also live on Radio Scotland. And remember, we're here every weekday morning, new episodes of the Scottish Football Podcast, bright and early, so click subscribe to where you get your podcasts or join us at BBC Sounds when the podcast drops in the morning. You won't want to miss a thing. For now, though, I'm Phil Goodlad. We'll speak again soon. And remember, enjoy the beautiful game.
This is the shocking moment English football has been dreading.
My name is Moses Swabu, and I used to be a professional footballer. But then I got in deep with organised crime and became a match fixer operating in the English League.
A match-fixing investigator has highlighted 2 matches he says appear to have suspicious betting patterns.
How honest are you going to be with me?
This is 100%. Join me for Sports Strangers Crimes presents Confessions of a Match Fixer. Listen on BBC Sounds.